Here we are live with Kevin Dooley. So today we're going to talk to Kevin Dooley. Kevin is our photographic safari tour guide. I don't know if that's your official title. So maybe you can introduce yourself to our audience. I think that this is our first ever live session here, and we're actually trying to, we're going to produce more of them every couple of weeks or so. So welcome, and let's let Kevin introduce himself here.
Well, Tom, I always enjoy chatting with you, and we've had really fun times on safari. So it's always a pleasure to spend time with you. I'm Kevin Dooley. I own Dooley Photo Safaris, and I've actually been a professional photographer now for about 42 years, and been a wedding and portrait photographer for a good part of that. And my safari photography has really been going strong now for probably about 12 to 15 years. And that's really what I spend most of my time doing right now. In fact, we're actually in the process of closing down our wedding and portrait studio now, and spending all of our time just doing the safaris. So basically, I do most of my safaris South Africa and Botswana. On a very rare occasion, we will go to Kenya and Tanzania and those areas, but we don't really go there too often. And we also do Alaska, Brazil. We do India for the tigers. So we do many trips here. Oh, and the Pantanal for the jaguars. But when it really comes down to it, Africa is the love for me. I really love going to Africa. My wife is from South Africa. I have several children that live in South Africa, and Botswana and South Africa are just really the place I like to go to.
Yeah, I'm just showing a couple of your images in the background here. All right. Yeah, no, really nice photos. I wish I took them all. And that's really the thing. Like, you're not gonna get this kind of opportunity anywhere but Africa, and it takes a real good guide to take you to these places, know what the animals do, know their kind of animal schedule, like when to see them, how to see them, what to look for, right? So maybe at first let us know, like, how you got into this safari business, right? How did you become a safari tour guide?
Well, I've always had a massive love for wildlife, and also a massive love for photography. Those are kind of like the two the two big things in my life: wildlife and photography, of course, besides Trisha, my wife, right? And so I was going to Africa, maybe once a year or so, just to either do video or photography. And I met up with my wife, Trisha. She was actually my Afrikaans tutor, because I wanted to learn Afrikaans, which is one of the languages that they speak in Southern Africa. And we met up, and we eventually got married, and we decided that, we might as well combine, these things that we love to do. And so that's basically how I got started in it. I eventually got my certification as a wildlife guide in Africa, and I really wanted to learn as much as I possibly could about the wildlife, about the animals, their various habitats that they live in, all of those things that really help us to be able to locate the animals, read their behavior, make predictions on when and where is the best time to photograph them, and to kind of like, for me to actually even be able to turn around and say, hey guys, I think this, this leopard's going to come out of the tree now, or this lion is going to, yawn or growl or roar or whatever. All those little things that we learn as trained wildlife guides, they really come in handy to be able to know how to get the best and most unique photographs. We're not, of course, we just want to get as many photographs as possible, but if we have an understanding of how to push the edge a little bit and get photographs that are, above average, above normal. That all is really based on a person's knowledge of wildlife behavior and the area and how to predict when those animals are going to do things that are going to be really, really awesome.
No, it certainly has been a treat. I mean, this is kind of like a portfolio building. I was only on one trip so far with you, but it was really like breathtaking, and you really want to do more. I didn't know what to expect, but everything was a pleasant surprise. I mean, it's just everything's just so perfect. Weather's perfect. I mean, I thought it would be like super hot and kind of humid, but it's been extremely pleasant. And we went in the late October, so that's spring over there. And the mornings were a bit crispy, but during the day it's gotten hot. The sun is really strong on the other side, it seems.
The African elephant is a third to 40% larger than the Indian or the Asian elephant. So, and the Botswanian African elephants and the ones in South Africa are some of the largest of all of the African
Which is gigantic,
elephants.
yeah. And yeah, sometimes you get scared, they'll do a mock charge at you. And I remember we got scared the first time, like, what the heck is this? Let's get out of here.
One of the things I can tell you that the best wildlife photographs come from people once they've had an opportunity to sort of transition into the wilderness, into the wild, into understanding and enjoying the animals, and then they start to see things where their images go beyond the ordinary, go beyond the average. And that's where you really come into that whole thing of, do I go on a photographic safari? Do I go on, just a regular safari? And so photographic safari, you get all those advantages of longer periods of time. Like we can drive off roads, we're not stuck to just being on the roads. And we work together with our other, we usually have 2 or 3 vehicles. We have radios, we radio each other, see what's going on. Also, interestingly enough, we do get some people that, they just photograph with an iPad or a cell phone, but they get into it so much just because they're around these other people that are really into the wildlife, creating beautiful images and noticing the things that are going on around them, sunsets, pointing out things that people might not normally see.
Yeah, so I kind of remember that it's like this feeling of like being in the group that, is after the same thing. I remember our cheetah chase, and, our guides just took off after those cheetahs, and there was no road or anything. We're just going past bushes and everything in sight. So it was impossible to keep camera steady, and you can't catch up to these cheetahs. There's just no way. I mean, they run like the wind. It's a bullet. Like you see it running a little bit, and then it like puts it in 5th gear and just takes off.
Okay, this is the way things are laid out. This is the way the wind's blowing, whatever. This is the terrain. This is the direction we think the cheetahs are going to run. So we try to get to that area where we can stop and then get, like if the cheetah's going to make a kill or something, we can be in the right
position. Oh, yeah, we were
to be able
extremely close. I mean, you could almost touch them after the kill. But when they take off, I mean, there's just like, it's like a bullet.
I have found if a cheetah's like really rolling, man, really going, like under 3,000th of a second,
it's gotta be. I remember I was shooting a lot at 4,000th of a second. I'm like, listen, I can't fix blurry images. I can fix grain. So it's better to push your camera to the limit, do like 1/4,000th of a second, which really brings us to like next point here of this conversation is what gear to bring, and number one thing, you got to know your camera. No matter what you bring, you got to practice before, because you don't want to practice at the safari and learn your camera on the safari. So if you do get a new camera, use it for a couple of months before the safari.
We do like in the middle of the day, if we're not out, like I'll do workshops and on our way to the safari lodge, we spend a lot of time, even on the transport, talking about like shutter speeds and f-stops and leading and just a lot of different things, techniques that we use. However, there's no way that I can learn every single camera to the point where if somebody asks me how to set their camera up or work it, you know, and it's a camera that I'm not used to working with, it can be a little tricky. So I always tell people, whatever you do, download your owner's manual, do what you just said, where, you know, at least get to know the basics on your camera, because you don't want to go on a trip like this and not have that understanding of how your camera works. Now, interestingly enough, like, so I use Sigma lenses. I use a Sigma 60 to 600, and I shoot. Now, my technique and my style, I do a lot of portrait kind of work. So I do end up pushing out to 500, 600 a lot. But it's not because we can't get close enough to the animals. It's because I really enjoy portraits. I enjoy eyes. I enjoy the expressions in the animals. But we get a lot of people that'll come with like a 70 to 200 with a 1.4 converter, or, you know, a 100, the Canon 100 to 400, things like that. And then we get other folks that will come with like these massive 600 millimeter prime lenses. And so whatever you bring along, you know, we'll talk about that, because I always meet with all the guests before, and, you know, but on phone or on Zoom or whatever, and talk about their gear and how we can utilize their gear to the best of their advantage. So it's not necessary that you go out and spend a ton of money on all kinds of fancy gear to be able to do this, because we really, it's not uncommon for us to be 20 feet away from a lion or something like that. Now, there are times when 600 millimeter will come in handy. There's no doubt about that, but you can really enjoy a safari and really get great images with a minimal amount of gear. And the other thing is, you know, every time you have to kneel down or reach down to change your lens, you could miss something, you know. So that's one of the reasons why I like my 60 to 600, is because I just shoot with that, you know. And so it takes me wide to 60, it takes me out to 600 if I need it. Most of the stuff I shoot is probably between 400 and 500. So gear is wonderful. Oh, and one other thing too, you know, like we get the most incredible skies there at night. We get the Southern Cross, and it's insane because there's no light noise. So bringing a tripod along, you know, good quality tripod for, you can get a sturdy camera mount if you want to do like star shots at night, is also really handy. And I do use your gimbal, as you know, but I use your gimbal a lot, because I like that sort of movement where I can really work quickly. You have to be able to work quickly with wildlife.
Yeah, and that's the thing I found, like with my limited experience, that you know, it really. What really is great, like especially if you're not super experienced, is to bring one super zoom, like you have that Sigma 60-600. So this way you can mostly just use one camera body. You're not wasting time swapping cameras. But the camera has to be fast enough where it doesn't buffer out, doesn't miss focus, has a great battery life. For example, I have a picture here, and we can maybe show some of those gimbals that we had. So that was our group from last year. So that's Kevin right there with the gimbal. So a lot of times what we did actually was stake out. So we sit in one location for even a couple hours, right? So when you have that gimbal, your arm doesn't get tired. You are on target all the time. And maybe you shoot with the second camera, right? So you leave your main camera on the gimbal, but you shoot with another camera. When an opportunity presents itself, you're all ready. You don't have to like find the subject or search.
The other reason I do that is because, so remember, I spend a lot of time on safari, okay? And so if I ever have a problem with a camera or a lens, you know, I have a backup. So I keep I use a Canon R3 with my 60 to 600, and then I use a Canon 1DX Mark III, and I have a Sigma 150 to 600 on that. So that's primarily more for a backup, but you're right. I mean, if something quick does happen, although I can get my camera off that gimbal so fast, man. But anyway, yeah, if something happens, you know, I've got two cameras.
You got to have two cameras, otherwise you're doing yourself disservice, you know.
Oh, by the way, on your upcoming trip to Botswana in October, you're going to want to bring a wide-angle lens. This year, I was photographing elephants with a 14 to 24, and even then I was
that all from the height? Oh, so you don't get out close to the elephants.
So there were times when I could literally, if I wanted to, I could reach out and touch an elephant's leg.
So maybe as a closing for this,
You know?
Kevin, you can maybe just mention your upcoming safaris, not just the ones with us, but whatever you want to mention, and how people can find you, how they can get in touch with you. That would be really nice. So maybe I'll bring up your website here in the background.
Okay, yeah. The web address, it's IDUBE Photo Safari. So it's spelled IDUBE Photo Safaris. IDUBE Photo Safaris. And the two safaris we have coming up with Tom are going to be in October. One's in South Africa, one's in Botswana. As far as other trips besides yours, I've got India coming up for tigers. That's in May. I've got a couple spots actually for bears in Alaska in July. Our September bear trip is sold out, but July I've got a couple of spots available. And then our Pantanal in Brazil, we can take a few more people. That's an amazing, amazing trip. And what else do we have going on? I think that's for this coming year. We do Bosque del Apache and stuff like that as well. But India, tigers, Pantanal, jaguars, and then, of course, these trips to Africa that we're talking about. Now, next November, by the way, we also do some tribe safaris. So tribal safaris do some very remote tribes in Ethiopia. If you look at my Facebook page, you can see some of those images as well. It is a total blast. And these are very remote tribes. So it's an extremely cultural experience. So anyway, and you can call me, you can text me, you can message me on Facebook Messenger. I can talk to you on the phone directly, and we can go through all your questions and how we get to South Africa. Yeah. It's really
getting
easy.
to South Africa was extremely easy, and that was actually during our COVID time last year. And this year, if everything goes well, it is super easy. It's like traveling to Europe. All right, so Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. This has been really nice. I can't believe like 25 minutes went by like nothing. You can contact Kevin Dooley at idubephotosafaris.com, or you can reach out to me also at ProMediaGear.com. Obviously, I'm Tom, if you don't know who I am. All right, so thank you so much for watching. All right, take care. Thank you, Kevin.
Bye, Tom. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. See you.
Have a wonderful day.